They'll kill you.
You're right.
All right. And I know you're not in the Marlboro Club because when people cough that are in the Marlboro Club, they sound like, when they laugh, they sound like a lung is coming up. So you can tell when somebody is in the Marlboro Club. And when I say Marlboro Club, I mean they eat the things. I mean like 2 or 3 packs a day. I'm not talking about social smokers. That's not what I'm talking about. Yeah, those people that, when you get on the elevator 15 minutes after they have, and you still smell them, you're in the Marlboro Club. All right, so here's some things that we talked about, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because this is the reading. I told you to read 12.1 and 12.2, so I'm just going to go through, and these are some of the things that we talked about. Statistics is the art and science of gathering and interpreting data. We talked about that. That is a test question, so make sure. I'm not going to spend a lot of time for you to copy it because we already covered it. I'm just trying to make sure that we covered everything because I was doing everything from memory the other day, and that's covered. 2 branches. Now, you might want to write this down. I always forget this. Descriptive and inferential.
Yeah, I was doing the 12.1 homework and that popped up as a question.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know what this is.
Yeah, descriptive and inferential. Descriptive statistics, think of, put beside it your test grades. You pull in your test grades, you calculate them, you add them together, you divide them by how many test grades you got, and that is your average. You're actually getting the data, and you're actually what? You're actually getting the mean or the standard deviation. You're doing the calculations. That's descriptive statistics. The key word for inferential is this word right here, prediction. Let me ask you a question. When you get your average of your test, does that predict what you're going to make on the final exam? Yes or no?
Oh.
I think you said no, which is correct.
Yeah.
Okay. Your average, if you make a 72 average on your test, does that mean you're going to make a 72 on your exam? No.
Oh.
So it's not predicting. So descriptive does not predict. Inferential predicts. Let me give you an example. Let's say that you pulled, and you usually use other people's data. Write that down. You use other sources of data. Let's say you go to DOT and you pull the DUI homicides or the DUI deaths caused by DUI drivers in the last 5 years. And you crunch the numbers and you crunch the numbers and you predict that in 2021 there will be blank deaths in South Carolina due to drunk drivers. That is inferential statistics. Inferential, usually you use other sources of data and you predict.
What would be another example of descriptive statistics besides a test?
Average age of a class.
Okay.
Average IQ test, average IQ score. In other words, taking data that you obtain and you actually calculate the mean, median, mode, range, mid-range, variance, standard deviation. You calculate that stuff.
Got it.
That's descriptive. Inferential is when you take other sources and you use the other sources and you crunch the numbers, but you predict something. That's more of a SAT question more than it is one of my questions. Now, you might see a homework question. What was your homework question like, Miss Grindle?
I don't remember. I've done the entire homework for it already, so I don't remember what question
Miss
it was.
Grindle was doing drugs yesterday, so she don't remember.
I mean, there's like 30 questions in the whole thing. I can't tell you which one it is unless I go back and look at it.
That's fine. We all understand. We will have an intervention at the end of the semester. Next. Population. Population is usually your largest group. And it's what you predict for. That's what you want to predict for. And the next page is probably going to have the sample. Okay, there is the big one, and the small one is a subset. And I like to just call the sample subset of the population. The sample is a subset of the population. The population is always the bigger number. The sample is always the smaller number. Those are two test questions that I would ask. And I'm going to tell you, standardized tests love probability and statistics questions because it's basic. In other words, most people that go to Michelin to get a job or Bosch or get into clinicals for nursing or, you know, go into placement tests, most of them now that graduate high school have had at least one semester of probability and statistics. Okay, basically because they've watered down this, basically because everybody has had, you know, one semester of statistics because they couldn't handle algebra and calculus. All right. And what's best to do nowadays, when you want to fix something, you water it down. You don't fix the problem, you water it down. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that.
I wasn't even listening to what you said.
What?
I didn't even hear what you said.
When a statistician draws a conclusion from a sample, there is always the possibility that that conclusion is incorrect. Sometimes statisticians can be dishonest.
Yeah.
Sometimes media can be dishonest. Why? Because they are, starts with a B. Can you think of the word?
Biased.
Biased. And I don't know if they're going to do the next slide with that, but it's what they're leading to, I think. I don't know. Sometimes the errors are accidental. Sometimes they're not. I don't know if they're going to go to bias here or not. No, not yet. But bias is in the slides. A random sample. Throwing a dart at a wall of balloons is a random sample. Picking a phone number out of a phone book is a random sample. The key word, and this is a SAT question as well as a test question. The key word, and I don't know why it just did that. Why is it going backwards? All right, the key word to random sample is every subject has the same chance of being picked. Right, equal opportunity if you want to. Each one has equal opportunity. Each person has equal opportunity to be picked. And I always use the names in a fishbowl. If I wrote down your names on every single, on a piece of, wrote each of your names on a Post-it note, a yellow Post-it note, and I folded it in half, and I put it in a punch bowl. And at the end of class, I picked a name, I swished it around, threw it up in the air, and, you know, shake it up. And I picked a name out of it. That is the example of a random sample. Picking a number out of a phone book is a random sample. Throwing a dart at a wall about a little section where it's got 30 balloons and you got all them balloons right beside each other and you just throw a dart at it blindly, that is a random sample.
So it'll have a random outcome, basically.
Yes, everybody has the same chance. Equal chance. I want you to highlight those two words, equal chance. Because in every definition on a test or homework, they're going to have some form of those two words in the definition. Equal chance. I don't know. There it is. Okay.
Oh, I found the
systematic.
questions.
I'm sorry, what?
I found those two questions on the homework. It was really just the definitions of descriptive and infernal, and you just had to know what it was.
Systematic. Systematic random sample is the second best besides random sample. Systematic random sample means you go through and you pick every 10th name out of the phone book, or you pick every name in the lower right-hand corner of each page.
So it'll have like a pattern or something.
A pattern. Keyword here is pattern or system. So let's say that you wanted to, let's say that things are back to normal and you are having classes at the Anderson campus and you want to do a survey of everybody that leaves. So you stand at the front door and instead of surveying every single person, you try to do every 7th person or every 10th person. That would be a systematic random sample. These are all homework questions. I usually don't test on these different samples, but I know that standardized test will ask for a random sample. They'll say, what is the definition of a random sample? And they give you 4 definitions to pick from. The one you want to look for is equal chance, equal opportunity. And random systematic, you're looking for 2 words, pattern or system. And here's the pattern. Every nth item, that's a pattern. That's a system. Every nth item, every 7th item, every 10th item, every 100th item, every name in the phone book in the bottom right-hand corner. The computer generates every 5th person out of the phone book. That's a systematic random sample. A cluster sample. Now, I don't test on these, and I doubt very seriously you would be tested on it with a standardized test, but these are homework questions, so I'm just going to glance over them. A cluster sample is sometimes referred to as an area sample. Okay, what would be a good area sample? I'll tell you 2 good ones. School would be elementary school or junior high school or even a high school. Those 3 schools would be a cluster sample because why does it keep doing that? Okay. As I said, the cluster sample is based on geography. Okay, would a person that goes to T.L. Hanna be living on the west side of town? No. Well, not
Maybe,
necessarily. Okay.
It's not likely.
If that's not strong enough, then go to a voting what? Precinct. Why a voting precinct? Because a voting precinct is based on the outer geography of the precinct. So that's why a voting precinct is the best example of a cluster sample. Okay.
The homework uses a random sample of 30 county areas as selected as a cluster sample.
Well, you could do that, yeah. I don't like doing that because county, I don't like to say a county is a cluster because sometimes a county is based, yeah, it can be based on geographical. A county is, to me, is not a good example of a cluster sample. Okay, I don't know why this thing keeps going backwards, but I'm not going to worry about it. Okay, stratified involves dividing the population by characteristics such as gender, race, or religion. So let's say I go to a school and I divide the school up into male and female. That would be called a stratified cluster sample. Now you could do a stratified population sample or a stratified sample by going to Anderson campus out of Tri-County Tech. That would be Anderson campus, a sample there. And you could divide the Anderson campus into male and female. That would be a stratified. Okay. Convenience should be next. Yep. Why do you think they put convenience last?
I don't know.
What do you always put first? You always put the best first. So why do you think they do convenience last? Because it sucks.
Because it sucks.
It sucks. It is the least accurate and it's the least used. Let's say I worked at an 80s rock station and I'm going to school part-time and my full-time job is running a, whatever you call it, a radio station. I'm a DJ or whatever you want to call it, whatever the political correct term is nowadays. All right. And I do that from 9 to 5. Okay. And then I go to school at night and I got a project. I've got to do a project for my geek of a math teacher. He's teaching probability and he's a geek. And he wants me to do a math project. So I decide I'm just going to do it. I got to do it tonight. I got to do it before class. So I'm just going to get on the radio here and I'm going to pull over my microphone and I'm going to say, okay, I need people to call in right now from 12 o'clock to 4 o'clock. 12 o'clock to 4 o'clock, and I want you to tell me what's your favorite kind of music. Okay, can anybody put that together?
I mean, it's pretty random.
Where do I work?
Huh?
In my example, where do I work? What kind of station do I work at?
A radio station.
What kind of radio? What kind of songs do I play? Did anybody not listen to a word I said?
Rock.
Okay, what kind of rock? 80s rock, which is next to 60s rock. Well, there is no other. 60s rock and 80s rock, that's it. There is no other. Okay? So everybody that calls into my station, what kind of music are they going to like?
The 80s rock.
Because they're listening to 80s music. They're listening to 80s rock music. I should have everybody talking at one time. But yep, I remember. Students now don't talk. All right. So anyway.
So it's inaccurate because it won't like include any other kinds of rock because of the station that it's on.
Convenient sampling is most inaccurate because it's most convenient. If I live in an apartment house and my apartment is 3 stories up or 2 stories up and it overlooks the sidewalk and there's people out there walking up and down the sidewalk at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning and I yell out the window, hey, do you like to exercise? What do you think that is? That's a convenience sample. Yeah. Why is it inaccurate? anybody that's walking on the sidewalk at 5 o'clock in the morning, what do you think they're doing?
They're working out.
They're exercising, they're walking, they're running, okay? Or they're returning home from a late night of drinking, one of the three, okay? So convenience sample can be very, very inaccurate. And it can be extremely, like the rock station, extremely what? Biased. Now they're getting close to talking about what is the plague of statistics and probability. That word right there. Bias. That is a terrible word. We're going to get to it later. And I'm not going to go through these examples. Okay. They got them in the book. That's systematic. Every 20th. That's systematic. It's a pattern. $50 gift certificate is given away at the annual bankers convention. Tickets are placed in a bin, and the tickets are mixed up.
That's random.
That's random. Children in a large city are classified based on the neighborhood school they attend. A random sample of 5 schools is selected. All the children from each school are included. So this is a cluster. The first 500 people entering a zoo are asked if they support an increase in taxes to support a zoo expansion. Well, the first 50 people, that would be a convenience sample.
Wouldn't that be convenience? Because, I mean, they're all at the zoo, so.
Oh, no, think about it. Who are the first people that's going to run in the front gate of a zoo? Younger people or older people?
Younger
people.
Kids.
The kids, they going to run in. Oh, my goodness. Who was that? Somebody said something. Besides Miss Grindle, who was that? Thank you, Miss Hunter. The kids. I mean, you paid for the tickets and everything. The first 100 people or so that's going to run through, like, you know, the front area. Think of Six Flags, okay? You go through the ticket booth at Six Flags, okay? And then there's like an area of shops on each side. Those kids are going to take off running, okay? They're going to be in front of the parents. Same thing here. So the first 50 people that they're going to be asking are going to be younger people. And younger people are going to be, some are going to be like, huh? What? Because, you know, taxes, that's something that they don't teach in school because they want you to be ignorant when you get out of school so they can control you a little bit easier. Oh, shut up, Hubert. I didn't say that. Okay, registered. Okay, this is stratified because it's breaking into what? Groups. Okay, here we go. Many individuals, businesses, and advertising firms misuse statistics to their own advantage. When examining statistical information, consider the following. Okay, I'm not going to go through all this. Let's get to the whole. What is it? Where is it?
I was like, where's the question?
I'm trying to find the actual bias. Where's bias? There we go. Possible sources of bias. Well, what is bias? Okay, bias is when you are not neutral. Just write that down. Bias is when you are not neutral. I'm just going to write that down because they go around the world. They don't want to say the actual word bias because it's like a bad word, but it's not a bad word. It just holds people accountable. Okay? Bias. Bias is basically being non-neutral. I can think of 2 professions that are biased, that are not biased, that the whole job, their job basically is based upon them being neutral. Can anybody think of the two jobs that I'm thinking of? Two jobs or two professions.
One that's supposed to be is a judge.
A judge.
Keyword is there, supposed to be.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna be honest with you. There's so much on judges now as far as investigations. I guess I'm pretty faithful or whatever. I've got good faith that most of the judges are neutral. I know the only judge that I've ever had is in divorce court, and that judge to me was very non-biased. Considering I got custody of my son every other week, and in South Carolina that's unheard of. You know, usually the dad has every other weekend. So I think I had an unbiased judge, because usually the judge sides as far as custody with the mother. So a judge or a referee, unless you're a Clemson fan, because if Clemson loses, it's the grass's fault, it's the team's fault, the referee's fault, the T station's fault, the TV commentator's fault, and let's see, what else can they blame? Football's fault. So a referee is supposed to be very unbiased. Unbiased is supposed to be, and I use this very loosely, supposed to be like the media, but you can forget that. The media is bought off, so I'm not even going there, all right? Let me give you an example of what neutral is. I sit on a land use board, and a few years, we had a guy come up, and he had like 3 pieces of property. One was 5 acres, and one was 2 acres, and one was 6 acres, and he had one piece left, and he done sold all those pieces, and here's the road, and here's the road. Oh shoot, I messed it up. And there was one piece left right here that was 0.7 acres. 0.70 acres. Okay? And there was people that lived over here and lived over here and lived over here and lived over here. Okay? And he wanted to be able to put a septic tank on that piece of property. Well, the county specifications say you have to have 0.75 or more acres. Okay, everybody with me? Now, there's a reason for this story, okay? All right, so we got 7 members of the board, and we have to listen to the public. We have to open a public hearing, and we opened up a public hearing, and everybody spoke. There was about 20 people there, and the guy that he was there by himself, and there was 20 people, and they all got up. They each had 2 or 3 minutes to speak, and every one of them said, he's going to put a mobile home on that property just as soon as he gets approval. We can't have him put a mobile home on that property. Blah, 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 blah. After 20 people said that, I got up, or I didn't get up. It was my turn to talk because I was chairman. And I said, I think we have lost our aspect of this land use request. The land use request is, can this man put a septic tank on this property that is 0.05 of an acre less than county ordinance? I said, that is the question. And I said the 20 people that have spoke all have said nothing about the septic tank. They have said what this man puts on the property. Well, that is not our job. That man can put a chicken house on that property. He can put a dog house on that property. He can put a little cabin on that property. He can put a mobile home on that property. He can put anything he wants to on that property. That's not our decision. Our decision is, can he put a septic tank on a 0.70 acre lot, and the county specifications is 0.75. And I said, no, unless he has a medical, unless his grandmother lives right here and he has to take care of her and that kind of situation, if there's no health or risk or anything like that, no. Why? Because if I do that for this person, then I have to do it what?
For everyone.
For everyone. And you can't set precedent. Now, why did I tell you that story? I told you that story because as a land use person on a committee, on a board member, what do I have to be? I have to be what? Neutral.
True.
Okay? I cannot say, well, I lived in a mobile home for 10 years before I built my house, and I'm offended by every one of y'all people that said bad things about mobile homes. So I'm going to vote for the guy because y'all are stupid. That's not only unprofessional, it is biased.
Biased.
You cannot be biased when you're dealing with statistics. And you should not be biased if you're doing something such as judge reference. I ain't even gonna say that. Or if you got a job on a committee or a land use board, you have to be right down the middle. Okay? You can't, I've had people come into that land use board that I went to school with. And I had to say, I went to school with this person and, I haven't seen this person in 15 years, but, but if I knew somebody that I have to exclude myself, you have to be biased. And we have lost, I think us as a society, we've lost that. We've lost this right here. And it's really sad. It's really sad. Bias. Is bias important? Yes. It is like the cancer to mathematics or to subjective reasoning, objective reasoning. It is a bad thing.
It keeps you from being open-minded.
Huh?
It keeps you from being open-minded.
Yeah, it does. And I'm all for freedom. I'm all for freedom. Freedom of the press, freedom to bear arms. But when somebody tells me I have to think a certain way, ooh, that pisses me off. Ooh, that makes me mad. So I'm not gonna talk about this because I will get very mad and I'm not gonna do that. Okay?
That's fair.
Just like you should not think, Miss Grindle should not think A, B, or C because that disagrees with the way I think.
Because it offends me.
Oh, yeah. It's ridiculous. All right. Okay, I'm through. Vague or ambiguous words. Yep. I'm not going to get into this with y'all because we're not going to be doing a survey. So we're not going to be worried about questionnaires or things like that. But when you read it in the book, you'll be able to absorb it a little bit better. Okay. Okay, here's some examples of graphics that you should stay away from. Somebody tell me what's wrong with this graphic. Which one's wrong? Based on what you know from years of doing graphs in school, which one's wrong?
Where's the stats for the graph? Well, judging
B
by that,
is wrong.
Yeah.
Somebody tell me why B is wrong. Okay, somebody besides Miss Grindle. No offense, Miss Grindle, but you answer all.
You're good.
You're going to have a nice office. You and Mr. Pack will have a nice office. I want to get Miss Hunter. Miss Hunter's a winner too. I want to get some of these winged on a pickle people to talk. Okay. What about actuaries? My understanding, their job is calculating and interpreting statistics. You are correct. And I appreciate that. Mr. Nelson. I'm not, an actuary is, okay, I'll give you an example of an actuary. It's basically, an actuary is a glorified accountant. All right. Y'all remember me telling y'all that I've been watching Bar Rescue a lot?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, there comes a point in time when somebody needs to tell you if you're losing money and don't know what the hell you're doing. An actuary or an accountant, Mr. Nelson, is that person. You with me?
Yeah, I'm with you.
Okay. An actuary or an accountant is supposed to come up to the company or to the person and say, look, Mr. Nelson, I know you love this business, and I know that, but I'm going to tell you something. We're going under. You really suck. Okay. That's what an actuary or an accountant is supposed to do. Based on what? Based on the numbers. Do you know anybody that's an actuary, Mr. Nelson?
Not at the moment, no.
Well, I like to consider an actuary like it's not an accountant because an actuary doesn't always deal with money. They actually deal with more populations. They also deal with money. They deal with any numbers that the company actually brings in. So with an insurance actuary, they deal with numbers and probability having to do with death, having to do with how many people between 18 and 24 die. What is the probability that a person between 18 and 24 is going to die before 2025? That kind of, and then they also incorporate the accounting with the money into it. And then they come up to the person or come up to their company and say, we've got to change this policy because if we don't change this policy now, we are going to lose a lot of money by 2025. That's what an actuary does, kind of like an accountant. Does that help answer your question?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, an actuary is very unbiased. An actuary should not come up to the president of a business or the chairman or the chairman of the board or whatever and say, well, my brother-in-law works here and I hate him. So is there any way we could take this number right here and do this so we can get him fired? That is no. That is bias, and that is wrong. Okay? Now, this is an example of somebody using graphics to try to get a point across. This is the actual picture. This is biased. Why is this biased? Because it shows what? It shows a more aggressive track where the actual track is not aggressive. See, this is more steep. Why? Oh, they just took out about 24 numbers right here. That's where, there's the problem right there. That little zigzag. Can't do that. Now, you can do that if you put a note down here that says 0 through 25 was taken out of the graph because of room. As long as you put a note down here that says that, then you're okay. What's wrong with this picture? This one is correct. This one has a zigzag. This looks more dramatic when the actual numbers only on this little bit of difference right here. Let me give you an example of something that happened in 2016 or 2015. There were several people running for the presidential nomination. of the GOP nomination in 2015. Nomination 2015 for the 2015-16 election. And for a long time, Donald Trump came out, and for a long time he held 20 to 25% lead over all the Republican nominees. Now, y'all may remember this. I don't know if you remember this or not. The closest one, there wasn't any close because the rest of them were running like 2 or 3. But everybody's sweetheart was little Jeb Bush. And he was pulling about 1%. And then there was, oh gosh, what's his name from Texas? Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz was running about 2%. And then there was other people, and they were running around 2% or whatever. And the GOP, they couldn't do anything with this. Okay. There was a big debate coming up, and the debate was on a Saturday. Okay, there was a big debate on a Saturday. Oh, I know. Meanwhile, Jeb Bush, he dropped out. Does anybody remember when Jeb Bush dropped out? He dropped out after his mother couldn't help him. His mother came and did interviews, and she was like in a wheelchair and still couldn't help him. He dropped out. Then there was the problem, who are we going to put to go after Donald Trump, because we don't want him as our nominee. So what they did is that right before the debate on a Saturday, there was a Saturday debate. On Friday, there was this poll that came out. On the Friday before the debate, there was this poll that came out that said 57% of the nation wanted Ted Cruz to be the nominee. So he went from 2% to 57% in like 24 hours. Now that's not the gist of the story. The gist of the story is, if you looked at the poll and you brought it up, N was equal to 100, and the margin of error was 7%. Can somebody tell me what this means? Anybody? This right here was a political what job? Anybody want to know? Y'all ever heard of a political hit job?
Mm-mm.
What's a political hit job?
Like a lie?
A lie, basically. Now, how do you say that, Hubert? Well, if you're going to do a national poll, are you going to survey 100 people? Yes or no?
No, that's not national.
Why? What'd you say, Miss Grindle? Say it again.
I said no, that's not national. That's only 100 people.
What would you do if you were going to do a national poll, since we've got 31 million people in the United States? Or 31 billion, I can't remember, 31 million. Can't remember, 320 million. I think it's 320 million. How many would you at least do? 1,000 people? You know, or 10,000? Or maybe even 100,000. But are you going to go on national TV? Would you put your reputation on national TV surveying 100 people?
No.
Margin of error on any poll, any margin of error greater than 2 or 3% is worthless. Margin of error above 2 or 3% is worthless. So why did they do this? Why did the media do this?
To sell
Because
a
they
narrative
wanted-
that Cruz was more popular than
They
Trump.
wanted Cruz to be more popular than Trump because Jeb Bush had dropped out. This is what bias is in the media. Okay? That's what bias is. They want to tell people how to what? How to think and how to vote. It's real scary. I ain't got no use for it. Now, why did I use that example? Here is an example of using a poll, not just changing the graph, but using a whole poll and put it on TV and try to persuade people. This is called a subjective poll. It's called a subjective poll. It's to try to sway people by just putting it on a poll. Okay. I just thought I'd give you a couple of real world, with the land use board and the Republican nomination. Thought I'd give you kind of a idea of bias and how it does. But what is the only, and I'm going to say this one thing, what is the only weapon against bias?
Facts.
Yeah. Keep going on that. The only weapon against bias is, you said facts. I'm going to put facts. What else? All these words that y'all are going to give me are going to lead up to where I'm going with this. Okay? I'm sorry, what?
The truth.
The truth. What else? One more. One more.
Reality? I don't know.
Reality. But I can narrow this down to one word.
Knowledge.
Knowledge. Y'all, did I tell y'all about the taxes and teaching the 103 class about taxes? Did I tell y'all about that?
No.
I teach a 103 class. It's 9 o'clock today, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And we've been going through taxes. And I kept telling these people that if you make more than $400,000 a year, you've got to pay 40% to the government, up to 40% in a progressive tax. And there was about 2 or 3 people who said, that's not true. I was like, yeah, it is. And I had to actually show them the brackets. And when we did the math, they were like, so you mean if I make $1 million, I have to give up to 40% to the government? I said, yeah, 39 this comes out to be 39%. Do you know why they could not believe that? I asked one of them. I said, why do you not believe it? I've been showing you right here because the news says that that these certain people don't pay their taxes. That is a fact. I had a student tell me that this morning. Now, what has that got to do with? Well, the news or the media, whatever, they can be very, very one way or the other, and that is an opposite to what? To the actual knowledge. Now those 2 or 3 students know that if you make over $400,000, you're going to be given close to 40% of your dollar to Uncle Sam. How many of you knew that in here?
I knew it was high, but I didn't know it was that high.
40%. Well, I'm going to say
40%
39%.
of the money that you make that's over 400 grand, correct? the less than 400 grand you pay lower percent on, right?
Yeah, that's what they say. And it's not true. So that's where did you hear that, Mr. Nelson?
My mom is a CPA.
And she says that they pay less?
Indeed.
Well, I don't know how they do that. How do they do that?
From my understanding, it's math and the law, but I'm not a professional.
Well, I don't know how they do it. I know what I'm teaching, you have to do 40%. Now, can you take your money and put it in other bank accounts overseas? Yes, you can. And to me, that's pretty smart. I mean, I don't understand.
Yeah, I was
If
gonna say
you want to give your money away, I can understand that.
I was gonna say if you had that much money, wouldn't you just open up several different accounts? Because then they can't do that.
Yeah, well, you have to, that's on all your money. I don't know. Like you said, Mr. Nelson, you can do it, but I don't know how to do it because I don't have that much money. So
Well,
I
I mean,
don't
it's
know.
like if you're
But the
making
whole point is that
$399,000 a year, and then your boss offers you a raise to $410,000 a year, would you not take it because that would put you into a higher tax bracket? No, because you're still making more money. It's just that you're paying a higher tax on that higher number.
yeah.
Right.
But I was more to the effect of, and yeah, there are ways around it, but I was more to the effect that when I got to the 39% bracket, and I said, okay, we're going to take this number and we're going to multiply it by 39%, I had 2 or 3 students say, that's not right. And I'm like, and I had to show them the bracket. I'm talking about just basic knowledge, okay?
I get what
I
you
had to
mean.
show them the bracket because they did not believe it. They thought that somebody that makes $449,000 only gave like 10 or 15%, and that's not true. So you do learn things, and what I was trying to say is you have to be knowledgeable about the subject. You have to make yourself knowledgeable. That's what I'm trying to say, and that is the only thing that will save you from being biased, not only in mathematics, but in a lot of other, and I got to shut up because we're finished. Okay. All right. So let me hit the record button. And